The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing quarterly reports for my investment portfolio. Mom sounded more excited than I'd heard her in months. "Jessica, honey, I have the most wonderful news." "What's that, Mom?" "Your father and I finally did it. We sold the house. We can afford that Mediterranean cruise we've been dreaming about for years." I set down my coffee, trying to process what she'd just said. "You sold the house?" "Yes. The realtor said we got top dollar for it. $485,000. Can you believe it? When we bought it in 1985, we only paid $78,000. That's quite an appreciation," I said carefully. "The new owners are a lovely young couple with twin boys. They're so excited about the backyard and that big oak tree you used to climb. Remember how you'd hide up there when you were upset?" I remembered. I also remembered the foreclosure notice that had arrived 3 years ago, the one my parents had been too proud to tell me about. The notice that had prompted me to quietly purchase their mortgage through Meridian Holdings, one of my investment companies. "Mom, when did you list the house?" "Oh, just last week. Everything happened so fast. The realtor said it was a seller's market and we had 3 offers the first day. Your father was so proud, he kept saying we were finally free to live the retirement we deserved." My chest tightened. "Mom, did you work with a real estate attorney on this?" "Of course, sweetheart. We're not naive. Though I have to say there was some confusion about the title. The lawyer kept asking questions about some investment company that apparently held our mortgage. But we sorted it all out." "No, they hadn't sorted it out. They couldn't sell a house they didn't own." "Jessica, are you there?" "I'm here, Mom. When is your cruise?" "We leave in 2 weeks. 12 days through Italy, Greece and Turkey. Your father already bought new camera equipment. He's planning to document every sunset." I could hear Dad in the background, probably poring over cruise brochures and travel guides. They sounded happier than they had in years. "That sounds amazing. I'm really happy for you both." "Thank you, honey. I know the house holds a lot of memories for you, but it's time for us to start a new chapter. At our age, we don't need all that space and maintenance." After we hung up, I sat staring at my phone. My parents had just sold their house to fund a dream vacation, except they hadn't owned the house in 3 years. The buyers had put down earnest money and signed contracts for a property my parents had no legal right to transfer. This was going to be a mess. I called my attorney, Patricia Chin, who'd handled the original mortgage purchase. "Patricia, we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "My parents just sold the house on Maple Street. The one Meridian Holdings owns." Silence. Then, "Jessica, please tell me you're joking." "I wish I were. They worked with some realtor and have buyers lined up. Apparently closing is scheduled for next week." "This is a nightmare. They can't sell property they don't own. The buyers could sue for fraud, the realtor could lose their license, your parents could face criminal charges." My stomach dropped. Criminal charges. Selling property you don't legally own, especially for hundreds of thousands of dollars, can absolutely result in fraud charges. I rubbed my temples thinking, "Patricia, what options do we have?" "Well, technically you could sell the house to the buyers yourself and let your parents keep the proceeds. But Jessica, this sets a dangerous precedent. What happens when they run out of cruise money and try to sell the house again?" He had a point. My parents were 67 and 69 years old respectively. Dad had worked as a high school history teacher for 40 years and Mom had been a librarian. They'd saved diligently but had been hit hard by medical expenses when Dad needed heart surgery 2 years ago. The foreclosure notice had arrived 6 months later. I'd bought their mortgage not to profit from them but to protect them. I'd planned to eventually transfer ownership back to them once their finances stabilized. But they'd never asked for help and I'd never figured out how to offer it without damaging their pride. "Let me think about this," I told Patricia. "In the meantime, can you contact the buyer's attorney and explain the situation?" "I'll handle it delicately, but Jessica, this is going to come out. Your parents will have to know what happened." That evening I drove to my parents' house, my house technically, for our weekly dinner. They were practically glowing with excitement. "Jessica." Mom hugged me at the door. "Come see what we've packed for the cruise." The dining room table was covered with new clothes, guidebooks and travel accessories. Dad emerged from the bedroom carrying a suitcase. "Look at this," he said proudly, showing me packing cubes and travel adapters. "Your mother has us organized like a military operation." "I can see that. You two are really excited about this trip. Sweetheart, we've been dreaming about this for 15 years, Mom said. Every year we'd say, next year we'll take that cruise, but something always came up. Car repairs, house maintenance, medical bills. But now we're free. Dad added. No mortgage payment, no property taxes, no worrying about the roof or the furnace. We can just enjoy our retirement. They looked so happy. So relieved. The stress lines that had appeared after Dad's surgery were gone, replaced by genuine excitement about their future. I couldn't bring myself to ruin it. The house sale went smoothly? I asked. Oh, mostly, Mom waved her hand. There was some paperwork confusion about the mortgage company. Apparently it was sold to some investment firm a few years ago, and the lawyers had to do extra research to clear the title. But everything worked out? The realtor assured us it's all standard, Dad said. These big investment companies buy and sell mortgages all the time. As long as we made our payments, which we always did, there's no problem transferring ownership. They had made their payments. Every month for 3 years, they'd been paying the mortgage directly to Meridian Holdings without realizing they were paying their daughter. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Spoke with buyer's attorney. Closing postponed indefinitely pending title resolution. Buyers are confused but cooperative. Jessica, is everything all right? Mom asked, noticing me checking my phone. Just work stuff. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you and Dad financially comfortable? I mean, after the house sale and with retirement. Mom and Dad exchanged a glance. Honestly, sweetheart, Dad said, we're better than we've been in years. The house sale gave us enough to pay for this cruise and still have a nice cushion for emergencies. Plus, Mom added, without the house expenses, our Social Security and pensions will cover everything we need in the retirement community. Retirement community? Oh yes. We forgot to mention, we put a deposit down on a lovely place called Sunset Gardens. It's a 55-plus community with a pool, activities, even a library where I might volunteer. We move in when we get back from our cruise. My phone buzzed again. Patricia, Jessica, we need to resolve this soon. Buyers are asking questions. That night, I lay awake trying to figure out how to handle the situation without devastating my parents. They'd made plans based on money they thought they had from a house they thought they owned. Their cruise was paid for, their retirement community deposit was made, and they were happier than I'd seen them in years. But they also couldn't legally sell property that belonged to me. The next morning I called Patricia with my decision. I want to sell the house to the original buyers at the agreed-upon price. Draw up papers transferring the $485,000 directly to my parents' account. Jessica, are you sure? That's essentially giving them $500,000. It's not giving them anything. It's letting them have what they thought they already had. But they'll never know you own the house. They'll never thank you for protecting them from foreclosure. Good. They don't need to know. Patricia was quiet for a moment. What about when they ask where the money came from? Tell them the title issues were resolved and the sale went through as planned. 2 days later, everything was arranged. The house sale proceeded, the buyers got their property and my parents got their money. Mom called me in tears of joy. Jessica, the lawyer just called. The title problems are all sorted out and the wire transfer went through. We're officially retired homeowners. That's wonderful, Mom. Your father is at the bank right now, making sure everything is properly deposited. He's like a kid on Christmas morning. I smiled despite my mixed feelings. I'm happy for you both. Honey, I have to ask, would you like anything from the house before we finish moving out? I know it's your childhood home too. Actually, Mom, there is one thing. What's that? Could I have the photo albums? The ones with all our family pictures. Of course. I was hoping you'd want those. There are some beautiful memories in there. The following week I helped them pack their remaining belongings. The house felt strange and empty, but also peaceful. The new owners had been incredibly understanding about the title delay, especially after Patricia explained it as a common issue with mortgage transfers. It's funny, Dad said as we loaded the last boxes into their car. I thought I'd be sad leaving this place. But mostly I just feel free. Free how? Free from worrying about money. Free from maintaining a house that was too big for us. Free to just enjoy each other while we're healthy enough to travel. Mom appeared from the backyard holding a small potted plant. This is a cutting from the rose bush your grandmother planted when you were born. I want to take it to the retirement community. As we stood in the driveway looking at the house one last time, Dad put his arm around Mom. Thank you, sweetheart, for being so supportive about all this, he said to me. I know this house means a lot to you too. It does. But what means more to me is seeing you two happy and secure. We are, Mom said firmly. For the first time in years, we don't have to worry about money or house repairs or any of that stress. We can just be together and enjoy our retirement. 2 weeks later, they left for their Mediterranean cruise. I got daily texts with photos, Mom and Dad laughing over gelato in Rome, posing in front of the Parthenon, watching sunsets from the ship's deck. They looked younger, somehow lighter. While they were gone, I drove by the house occasionally. The new owners had already started making improvements, fresh paint on the shutters, new flowers in the beds Mom had tended for decades. Their twin boys played in the backyard under the same oak tree where I'd spent countless childhood hours. When my parents returned, tanned and full of stories, they settled into their retirement community with enthusiasm. Mom volunteered at the library, Dad joined a photography club, and they both took water aerobics classes. Jessica, Mom said during one of our phone calls, I have to tell you something. My stomach clenched. Had they figured out what really happened? What's that, Mom? I feel guilty. About what? About being so happy. Your father and I keep saying we should have done this years ago. We spent so much time worrying about that house, about money, about everything. We could have been enjoying life instead of just surviving it. Mom, you don't need to feel guilty about being happy. I know, but we wasted so much time being stressed about things that worked out fine in the end. If only she knew how fine things had worked out and why. 6 months later, I received an unexpected call from Dad. Jessica, I need to ask you something and I want an honest answer. My heart started pounding. Okay. Your mother and I have been talking and we realized something doesn't add up. What do you mean? The house sale. We've been going over the paperwork with our financial advisor here at Sunset Gardens, and he noticed something odd about the title transfer. I stayed silent, not sure what was coming. The investment company that owned our mortgage, Meridian Holdings. The address on the paperwork is the same as your business address. I closed my eyes. Dad. Jessica, did you buy our house? There was no point in lying. Yes. When? 3 years ago. When you got the foreclosure notice. Silence stretched between us. Finally, Dad spoke again, his voice thick with emotion. You saved our house. I protected it until you could stabilize your finances. And then you let us sell it and keep all the money. You needed that money more than I needed the investment return. Jessica. His voice broke. Sweetheart, why didn't you tell us? Because you wouldn't have let me help if you'd known. But you let us think we were handling everything ourselves. You were handling everything yourselves. You never missed a payment, you maintained the property beautifully, you made responsible decisions about your retirement. I just made sure the bank couldn't take your home while you figured it out. I could hear Mom in the background asking what was happening. Your mother wants to talk to you, Dad said. Jessica Marie Thompson. Mom's voice came through the phone, using my full name the way she had when I was in trouble as a child. Did you buy our house without telling us? Yes, ma'am. And you've been letting us pay you rent for 3 years? You were paying your mortgage, same as always. But we were paying it to you. You were paying it to Meridian Holdings, a legitimate investment company. That you own. That I own, yes. Mom was quiet for a long moment. Jessica, how much money did you lose on this? I didn't lose anything, Mom. I made sure you could keep your home and eventually got a fair return when you were ready to sell. But you could have invested that money in something more profitable. There's no investment more profitable than my parents' happiness and security. I heard her crying softly. Sweetheart, we had no idea. We've been so proud of handling our retirement independently, but you've been taking care of us this whole time. Mom, you did handle it independently. You made your payments, maintained your home, planned your retirement, and made smart decisions about downsizing. I just made sure the bank didn't interfere with your plans. But why? Dad had taken the phone back. Jessica, why would you do this without telling us? Because I love you both. Because you raised me to take care of family. And because you deserve to enjoy your retirement without worrying about losing your home. But we could have paid you back. With what money, Dad? You were already stretched thin with medical bills and living expenses. If I'd told you what I was doing, you would have insisted on paying me back, which would have defeated the entire purpose. But now you're out almost $500,000. Now you're secure, happy, and living the retirement you deserve. That's not a loss, Dad. That's the best investment I've ever made. Over the next few weeks, we had several long conversations about money, family, and independence. My parents struggled with accepting that they'd been helped without knowing it, but gradually they began to understand my perspective. You know what the hardest part is? Mom said during one of our calls. What? Realizing how much you've grown up. When did you become the parent and we become the children? You're not children, Mom. You're adults who hit a rough patch and needed some backup support. That's what family is for. But we taught you to be independent, to handle your own problems. You also taught me to take care of people I love. Sometimes those two lessons conflict with each other. A month later, they invited me to visit their retirement community. As we sat by the pool watching other residents play water volleyball, Dad brought up the subject again. Jessica, your mother and I have been talking with our financial advisor. Okay. We want to set up a trust fund for your future children. I laughed. Dad, I'm not even dating anyone seriously. But someday you might be. And when that day comes, we want your children to know they have grandparents who believe in taking care of family. You don't owe me anything. We don't owe you, Mom corrected. We want to give you. There's a difference. Just like there was a difference between you giving us charity and you protecting our security, Dad added. I understood then that letting them contribute to my future family was as important to them as protecting their home had been to me. Hey, I said. But only if you promise me something. What? They asked together. Promise me you'll take that Alaskan cruise next summer. I've seen the brochures on your coffee table. Mom and Dad looked at each other and smiled. Deal, Dad said. But you're coming with us. I don't need a cruise. Jessica, Mom interrupted, some gifts aren't about need. Sometimes they're just about love. As I drove home that evening, I reflected on how the situation had evolved. My parents now knew I'd protected them, but they also understood why I'd done it quietly. They were grateful but not diminished by the help. And they were already planning ways to contribute to our family's future. The house on Maple Street belonged to a new family now, but the security and happiness it had provided my parents was permanent. They'd gotten their dream retirement, their financial worries were over, and they'd learned that accepting help didn't mean losing independence. Sometimes the best gifts are the ones people never know they received. And sometimes the best investments are the ones that pay dividends in family relationships rather than bank accounts. My parents had taught me that success meant taking care of the people you love. I'd simply found a way to apply that lesson while respecting their dignity and pride. The Mediterranean cruise photos were still displayed prominently in their new apartment, but so were the pictures from their recent weekend trips and community events. They weren't just surviving on their house sale money, they were thriving with the security and freedom it had provided. And I'd learned that sometimes protecting people you love means letting them think they protected themselves.